For centuries, Buddhist masters have understood a profound truth about the human heart. They learned that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Tonight, we will journey through the landscape of emotions together. We will sit with ancient stories that illuminate simple truths. And we will discover timeless wisdom on how to live with more peace in our heart. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you're listening from. These are not lessons you need to memorize or strict techniques you must master. They are simply ancient stories and timeless truths about where our feelings come from and how they can be transformed. We are not here to learn how to become emotionless, but how to become free. Take a moment, wherever you are, to simply arrive. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breath find its natural rhythm. There is nowhere else you need to be right now. Nothing else you need to do. Take a slow, deep breath. Let's begin our journey together. There is a question that has puzzled human beings since the beginning of time. The question is this: why do we suffer even when we know better? Think about it for a moment. You have read the books. You have heard the advice. You understand intellectually that anger serves no purpose. You know that worry rarely changes anything. And yet, when someone wrongs you, the fire of resentment burns. When uncertainty looms, the fog of anxiety descends. When loss visits your door, grief moves in as though it plans to stay forever. This is the great paradox of human existence. Our minds can grasp wisdom, but our hearts do not always follow. We can recite the teachings, but living them is another matter entirely. The distance between knowing and being can feel like an ocean we do not know how to cross. The Buddha himself observed this predicament over 2,500 years ago. He noticed that human beings are constantly caught between what they understand and what they feel. He saw that our emotions have a life of their own, rising and falling like waves, sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming. And he dedicated his life to mapping this inner territory, not through abstract philosophy, but through direct observation of the human heart. What he discovered was both simple and profound. Our emotions are not random. They arise from causes. They follow patterns. And because they have causes, they can be understood. Because they follow patterns, they can be transformed. This is the beginning of wisdom. Not the denial of emotions, but the understanding of them. Not the suppression of feeling, but the realization of where feeling comes from. Let us begin, then, by looking at the landscape of the heart. In the Buddhist understanding, emotions can be divided into two great families. There are those that lead us toward suffering, and those that lead us toward peace. This is not a moral judgment. The Buddha was not interested in labeling emotions as sinful or virtuous. He was interested in something far more practical. What works? What leads to happiness? What leads to freedom? The first family we might call the difficult emotions. These are the visitors that disturb our peace. Grief is one of them, that heavy cloak we wear when we have lost someone or something precious. Anger is another, that burning energy that rises when we feel wronged or threatened. Fear lives in this family too, along with its cousins anxiety and dread. Despair makes its home here, as does resentment, jealousy, and the cold weight of depression. These emotions share something in common. They contract us. They make us smaller. When we are afraid, we pull inward. away from life. When we are angry, we close our hearts against others. When we grieve without wisdom, we can become frozen, unable to move forward into the life that still awaits us. These emotions, when they take hold, limit our capacity to live fully, to love freely, to respond to life with clarity and creativity. The second family we might call the nourishing emotions. These are the visitors that expand our hearts and enrich our lives. Compassion is one of them, that natural movement of the heart toward those who suffer. Love lives in this family, along with gratitude, joy, and the gentle warmth of contentment. Inspiration makes its home here, that uplifting energy that moves us to create, to serve, to become more than we were. And there is another member of this family that often goes unrecognized. It is perhaps the most important of all. This emotion is peace. We do not usually think of peace as an emotion. We think of it as an absence, the absence of conflict, the absence of noise, the absence of disturbance. Peace is what remains when all the difficult things have been removed. But this understanding misses something essential. Peace, in the Buddhist tradition, is not merely what remains when turmoil has departed. It is a living force. It is a source of power. It is something you feel in your bones, something that rises up from within you and gives you strength for the journey ahead. Think of someone you have known, or perhaps seen, who embodied deep peace. Maybe it was a grandparent who remained calm in the midst of family chaos. Maybe it was a teacher who never seemed rattled, no matter how difficult the students became. Maybe it was someone who faced great hardship, illness, or loss, yet carried themselves with a quiet dignity that you could not quite explain. When you were in the presence of such a person, did you feel their peace as an absence? Or did you feel it as something more, something almost tangible, something that seemed to radiate from them like warmth from a fire? This is the peace that the Buddha spoke of. Not emptiness, but fullness. Not the mere absence of trouble, but the presence of something profound. This peace is an emotion in the deepest sense. It motivates. It empowers. It gives us the capacity to face life's inevitable difficulties without being destroyed by them. The Buddha described this peace with a beautiful phrase. He called it the peace that surpasses all understanding. It is a peace that cannot be explained by circumstances. It does not depend on everything going well. It arises from somewhere deeper, from a fundamental harmony with the way things are. This peace is what we are cultivating on the path of wisdom. Not just the removal of difficult emotions, but the development of this profound, life-giving stillness that transforms everything it touches. Let us step now into a story, a small glimpse into the life of those who dedicate themselves to the contemplative path. In a monastery nestled in the countryside, there lived a teacher who had spent many years studying the human heart. People from the surrounding towns and villages would often call the monastery seeking guidance. The phone would ring at all hours, and whoever was available would answer, offering what wisdom they could. Over the years, this teacher noticed something interesting about these calls. When the phone rang, it was almost never good news. "My husband has left me," a voice would say. "My mother is ill, and I do not know what to do. I lost my position at work, and I feel like a failure. I am so anxious I cannot sleep. Someone I trusted has betrayed me. I feel so alone. Call after call, year after year, the voices carried the weight of human suffering. The teacher would listen with care, offer what comfort and guidance he could, and return to his practice until the next call came. But here is what struck him. In all those years, in all those thousands of calls, almost no one ever rang to share their joy. Think about that for a moment. Almost no one called to say, "I just wanted to tell you that my life is going wonderfully." No one picked up the phone to announce, "I am so happy. I had to share it with someone." No one rang in the middle of the night to say, "I cannot sleep because I am overcome with gratitude." It simply did not happen. Now, this is not to say that the callers were unusual in some way. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives. Many of them, perhaps most of them, had good things in their lives alongside the difficulties. They had moments of joy, experiences of love, reasons for gratitude. But somehow, those things did not compel them to reach out. Those things did not feel urgent enough to pick up the phone. Only the suffering felt urgent. There is something worth noticing in this pattern. It reveals something about the way our minds are structured, the way our attention naturally flows. We are wired, it seems, to pay more attention to problems than to blessings. This is not a character flaw. It may have served our ancestors well. In a dangerous world, those who noticed threats and responded quickly were more likely to survive. The ancestors who sat around appreciating the beauty of the sunset while predators approached did not pass on their genes. But we no longer live in that world. Most of us, most of the time, are not in physical danger. Our basic needs are met. And yet our minds continue to operate as though catastrophe lurks around every corner. We scan for problems. We rehearse worst-case scenarios. We focus on what is wrong while overlooking what is right. This tendency shapes our emotional lives in profound ways. If we spend most of our mental energy focused on difficulties, is it any wonder that difficult emotions dominate our experience? If we constantly dwell on what is lacking, disappointing, or threatening, we are essentially marinating our hearts in negativity. The Buddha spoke of this in his teaching on mental cultivation. Whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, he said, that will become the inclination of their mind. If we think often of grievances, our minds will incline toward resentment. If we think often of fears, our minds will incline toward anxiety. If we think often of gratitude, our minds will incline toward joy. This is not magical thinking. It is simply the way the mind works. We become what we practice. And most of us, without realizing it, have been practicing the difficult emotions far more than the nourishing ones. This brings us to an important point about the path of wisdom. There is a kind of Buddhism that lives in books. It is the Buddhism of philosophy and theory, of complex ideas and ancient debates. This Buddhism has its place. It has produced profound insights into the nature of reality, the structure of consciousness, the mechanics of liberation. Scholars have devoted lifetimes to studying these teachings, and their work has preserved precious wisdom for future generations. But there is another kind of Buddhism. It is the Buddhism of the heart. It is less concerned with abstract philosophy and more concerned with practical transformation. It asks not, what is the nature of ultimate reality? But how can I suffer less? How can I love more? How can I find peace in the midst of this complicated, beautiful, heartbreaking life? This is the Buddhism we will explore together. The teachings that truly matter, the teachings that change lives, are rarely the most intellectually sophisticated. They are the teachings that speak to our actual experience. They are the teachings that help us when we are lying awake at 3 a.m, unable to sleep because worry has taken hold. They are the teachings that guide us when someone we love has passed away and we do not know how to carry the weight of grief. They are the teachings that show us what to do when anger has hijacked our hearts and we are about to say something we will regret. This is where the rubber meets the road, as they say. This is where wisdom either works or it does not. And here is the beautiful truth. The Buddhist path does work. Not because it provides clever explanations, but because it offers practical methods for transforming our relationship with our own emotions. It shows us that we are not helpless before the storms of the heart. It reveals that peace is not a distant goal but a present possibility. So where do we begin? We begin with awareness. We begin with simply seeing what is. Before we can transform our emotional lives, we must first understand them. Before we can change our relationship with difficult emotions, we must first acknowledge that they exist. This sounds obvious, but it is remarkable how often we skip this step. We are so eager to fix ourselves, to improve ourselves, to become the calm and peaceful person we imagine we should be, that we never pause to actually meet ourselves where we are. The Buddha compared this to a physician treating a patient. Before any treatment can begin, there must be a diagnosis. The doctor must examine the patient, understand the symptoms, identify the underlying condition. Only then can the appropriate remedy be applied. In the same way, we must examine ourselves, not with judgment or criticism, but with the gentle curiosity of someone who genuinely wants to understand. What emotions are present in my life? What visitors have taken up residence in the house of my heart? This is the practice of mindfulness in its most basic form. It is the practice of simply noticing. Imagine for a moment that your emotional life is like the weather. Some days are sunny and bright. Joy comes easily, gratitude flows naturally, and the world seems full of possibility. Other days are cloudy and grey. A vague melancholy hangs in the air, and even good things fail to lift your spirits. Sometimes storms roll in, bringing anger or fear or grief that shake you to your core. Just like the weather, your emotional landscape is always changing. No state lasts forever. The darkest storm eventually passes. The brightest day eventually yields to evening. This is the nature of all things, including our emotions. But unlike the weather outside, most of us never learn to simply observe the weather within. We never develop the skill of stepping back and noticing, with some degree of objectivity, what is happening in our hearts. Instead, we become completely identified with whatever we are feeling. When anger arises, we do not observe anger. We become anger. When fear arises, we do not witness fear. We are consumed by it. This identification is what gives emotions so much power over us. We lose ourselves in them. We forget that we are the one who is aware of the emotion, not the emotion itself. We forget that the storm is passing through our sky, but we are not the storm. The first step on the path of wisdom is simply to remember this, to begin noticing emotions as they arise, as they are present, as they pass away. To develop what we might call emotional awareness, the capacity to observe our inner weather without being swept away by it. Let us try this now. Settle into your body. Feel your feet on the ground or your body in your chair. Take a few breaths, not trying to change anything, just arriving in this moment. Now ask yourself, gently, what am I feeling right now? Do not try to find the right answer. Do not search for something dramatic or spiritual. Simply notice what is present. Perhaps there is a faint current of tiredness. Perhaps there is some residual stress from the day. Perhaps there is curiosity about where this is going. Perhaps there is peace. Perhaps there is something you cannot quite name. Whatever you find, let it be there. Do not try to change it, fix it, or improve it. Just acknowledge it. Say hello to it, as you might greet a guest who has arrived at your door. This is the beginning. This simple act of noticing, of naming, of acknowledging without judgment. It may seem small, but it is the foundation upon which all the other teachings rest. Know that you are sad when you are sad, the Buddha taught. Know that you are happy when you are happy. This is mindfulness in its most essential form. The simple, profound practice of being present to your own experience. When we begin to observe our emotions with this kind of gentle awareness, something interesting happens. The emotions lose some of their overwhelming quality. They become more manageable, more workable. This is not because we have suppressed them or pushed them away. It is because we have created a little bit of space between ourselves and what we are feeling. Imagine a small child who is terrified of the dark. To the child, the darkness is total. It fills everything. There is no separation between the child and the fear. They are drowning in it. Now imagine that same child with a small candle. The darkness is still there, but now there is also light. The child can see that the darkness has edges. It is not infinite. It is something that can be observed, something that has a shape and a boundary. Awareness is like that candle. It does not make the difficult emotions disappear, but it illuminates them. It reveals them as what they are: temporary visitors, passing weather, waves that rise and fall in the ocean of consciousness. With this awareness comes choice. When we are completely identified with an emotion, we have no choice in how we respond. The emotion drives our behavior. But when we can observe the emotion, even slightly, a gap opens. In that gap, we can choose. We can decide whether to act on the emotion or let it pass. We can select a response rather than simply reacting. This is freedom. Not freedom from emotions, but freedom in the midst of them. In the teachings that follow, we will explore this territory further. We will learn how emotions are constructed, how they build from small seeds into overwhelming forces. We will examine the specific patterns of anger and fear, grief and despair. We will discover the Buddhist response to difficult emotions, an approach that is neither suppression nor indulgence, but something far more effective. And we will learn how to cultivate the nourishing emotions, how to grow compassion and gratitude and peace in the garden of the heart. But for now, let this first teaching settle into you. Before anything else, before any technique or philosophy, there is simply this: awareness. The willingness to see what is. The courage to meet yourself as you are. The gentleness to observe without judgment. This is where the path begins. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a beautiful image of the lotus flower. The lotus grows in muddy water. Its roots are buried in the muck at the bottom of the pond. But the flower itself rises above the surface, pure and beautiful, untouched by the mud from which it grew. Your heart is like this lotus. It may be rooted in difficulty. It may be surrounded by muddy water, by challenging emotions and painful experiences. But it is also capable of rising. It is capable of blossoming into something beautiful, not by escaping the mud, but by growing through it. This is the promise of the path, not a life without difficulty, but a heart that can hold difficulty with grace. Not the absence of emotion, but the transformation of emotion. Not numbness, but wisdom. Not escape, but freedom. Take a moment now to simply breathe. Feel the weight of your body. Notice what emotions are present in you right now without needing to change them. Let them be exactly as they are. And rest in the simple awareness that you are here, you are breathing, and the journey has begun. We have begun to explore the landscape of the heart. We have seen that emotions can be divided into two great families, those that lead toward suffering and those that lead toward peace. We have touched upon the simple but profound practice of awareness, of noticing what is present without immediately trying to change it. Now we must go deeper. There is a question that naturally arises when we begin to observe our emotions. Where do they come from? Emotions can feel so sudden, so overwhelming, as though they simply descend upon us from somewhere outside ourselves. One moment we are fine, and the next moment we are gripped by anxiety, or flooded with sadness, or burning with anger. It seems to happen without our permission, without our participation. But is this really true? Let us explore this question together, because hidden within it is one of the most liberating discoveries on the path of wisdom. Emotions are not random. They are constructed. And because they are constructed, they can be understood. Because they can be understood, our relationship with them can be transformed. Consider, for a moment, the last time you watched a film. Perhaps it was a story of adventure or romance or mystery. Perhaps it made you laugh or cry or sit on the edge of your seat with anticipation. Whatever the genre, if it was a well-crafted film, it moved you. It created emotions within you, emotions that felt entirely real, even though you knew, intellectually, that you were simply watching light projected onto a screen. How did the filmmakers accomplish this? How did they reach inside you and stir feelings that you did not consciously choose to have? The answer reveals something profound about the building blocks of emotion. First, there is music. Notice how the soundtrack shifts throughout a film. In moments of tension, the music becomes sparse and unsettling. Low notes pulse like a heartbeat. Silence stretches until it becomes unbearable. Then, suddenly, a burst of sound that makes you jump. In moments of romance, the music swells with strings and piano, gentle and yearning. In moments of triumph, brass instruments announce victory. The music is not merely accompanying the story. It is creating your emotional response to it. There is a reason for this. Music speaks directly to the body. A slow, steady rhythm calms the nervous system. A fast, driving beat accelerates it. Filmmakers know that if they match the tempo of the music to the beating of an excited heart, your own heart will begin to synchronize with it. You will feel excitement, even if nothing exciting is happening on screen. The body follows the rhythm. Then there is lighting. In scenes of fear or danger, the lights dim. Shadows grow long. Darkness presses in from the edges of the frame. We cannot see clearly, and this uncertainty triggers something ancient in our nervous system. We become alert, watchful, uneasy. In scenes of joy or hope, the lighting brightens. Colors become warm. The world seems to open up, and we relax. All of this is happening below the level of conscious awareness. You do not decide to feel afraid when the music grows ominous. You do not choose to feel romantic when the lighting softens and the strings swell. These responses arise automatically, triggered by stimuli that bypass your thinking mind entirely. This is the architecture of emotion. It is built from rhythm and sound, from light and shadow, from the cadence of words and the expressions on faces. Filmmakers are masters of this architecture. They construct emotional experiences with precision and skill. But here is the crucial insight. What happens in a cinema also happens in your life. Let us explore a story that illuminates this truth. There was once a small community that was seeking a piece of land to establish a retreat center. After much searching, they found a beautiful property, a quiet place with forests and a stream perfect for contemplation. But the land was being sold at auction, and they would have to compete with other buyers. One of the community members, a person who had practiced meditation for many years, attended the auction. He arrived early, finding a seat near the back of the room, watching as others filed in. There were business people in suits, families hoping for a country home, investors calculating profits. The room filled with a quiet tension. The auctioneer stepped to the podium. He was a professional, a man who had conducted hundreds of such sales. He began calmly, almost casually, describing the property in measured tones. "A lovely parcel of land," he said. "Truly exceptional. Peaceful. Private. The kind of place that does not come on the market often." He paused, letting the words settle. "Now, what do we think a property like this is worth? Surely a substantial sum. Shall we begin at a high figure?" He named an amount that made several people gasp. Of course, no one raised their hand. He lowered the figure, then again, and again. Finally, at a more modest sum, someone raised a bidding paddle. And then something remarkable happened. The auctioneer transformed. His voice, which had been slow and deliberate, began to quicken. His body, which had been still, began to move. He leaned forward, eyes bright, gesturing toward the bidders. "We have an opening bid. Now, who will raise it? Do I see another offer? Yes, and another. We have competition now, friends. This is getting interesting." His words came faster and faster. The pitch of his voice rose. His arms swept through the air as he pointed from bidder to bidder. The energy in the room shifted palpably. People who had been sitting calmly were now leaning forward, hearts beating faster, caught up in something they had not anticipated. "Going once, going twice, do I hear another bid? Come now, do not let this opportunity slip away." The meditator, sitting at the back of the room, observed all of this with fascination. He noticed his own heart rate increasing. He felt the pull of excitement, the urge to participate, even though he had come with a clear budget and a calm intention. The auctioneer's performance was working on him just as it was working on everyone else. And that is what it was, he realized. A performance. The auctioneer was not simply conducting a sale. He was constructing an emotional atmosphere. Through the speed of his speech, the movement of his body, the rising urgency in his voice, he was building excitement where none had existed moments before. He was manipulating the architecture of feeling, and everyone in the room was responding. The meditator took a breath. He remembered his intention. He bid when the price was within his range, and he stopped when it exceeded what the community could afford. Others, caught in the fever of the moment, continued bidding far beyond what they had planned. The property eventually sold for an amount that surprised everyone. Afterward, walking to his car, the meditator reflected on what he had witnessed. How easily emotions could be created. How readily people could be swept up in feelings they had not chosen. And how rare it was for anyone to notice what was happening. What the meditator observed at the auction was not unique to auctions. It was simply more visible there, more concentrated. The same dynamics play out constantly in our daily lives, usually in subtler ways. Consider how you feel after watching the evening news. The images of conflict and catastrophe, the urgent voices of reporters, the dramatic music that accompanies each story. Is it any wonder that people who watch a great deal of news tend to feel more anxious, more fearful, more convinced that the world is a dangerous place? Consider the effect of the music you listen to. Songs of heartbreak and longing, repeated over and over, shape the landscape of your heart. Songs of anger and defiance prime you for conflict. The ancient traditions knew this well. They chose their ceremonial music with great care, understanding that sound is not neutral. It does something to us. Consider the people you spend time with. If your companions are prone to complaining, to criticizing, to dwelling on grievances, their words become part of your mental environment. Their rhythm becomes your rhythm. Their emotional architecture begins to shape your own. The Buddha spoke of this in terms of association. If you find a wise companion to walk with, he taught, one who is steadfast and virtuous, walk with that one joyfully and mindfully. The company we keep matters not just because of the ideas we exchange, but because of the emotional atmosphere we share. We absorb the moods of those around us, often without realizing it. This is neither good nor bad in itself. It is simply how we are made. We are social creatures, attuned to one another, sensitive to the emotional signals in our environment. The question is not whether we will be influenced by these signals, but whether we will be aware of them. Let us explore another story, one that shows how stillness can be a gift we offer to others. In a quiet monastery nestled among gentle hills, there lived an elder monk known for his peaceful presence. He had practiced meditation for many years, and there was something about him that put people at ease. When you sat near him, your own breathing seemed to slow. Your own heart seemed to settle. One morning, the monks had gathered for their simple meal. It was a quiet time. Sunlight came through the windows. The only sounds were birdsong and the soft clink of spoons against bowls. Then the door opened and a woman came in. Her face was troubled. She had received sad news that morning about someone dear to her, and she did not know where else to turn. She came to the monks, hoping for comfort, but she was so overwhelmed that her words came out in a rush. "Something terrible has happened," she said, her voice unsteady. "I do not know what to do. I do not know how to bear this." The younger monks looked up, uncertain how to help. They glanced toward the elder, expecting him to rise immediately. But the elder monk did something unexpected. He remained where he was. He took a slow breath. He continued with his meal, not hurriedly, but peacefully. His face held no coldness, only a deep calm. At first, this seemed strange. Was he not listening? Did he not care? But as the moments passed, something began to change. The woman, who had been so restless, began to grow quieter. Her breathing, which had been shallow and quick, began to deepen. The frantic energy that had carried her through the door started to ease. It was as though the stillness of the room, and especially the stillness of the elder monk, was seeping into her. After a few minutes, when her breathing had settled and her hands had stopped trembling, the elder monk gently set down his spoon. He looked up at her with warm eyes, full of kindness. "Come," he said softly. "Sit with me. Tell me what has happened." And she did. She sat beside him, and she spoke, and he listened with his whole heart. But now she could speak clearly. Now she could be heard. The storm inside her had gentled enough for real comfort to reach her. What happened in that room? Why did the elder monk respond to her distress with such quietness? It was not that he did not care. It was that he cared deeply, and he knew something important about how to truly help. He understood that when someone is caught in a wave of difficult feelings, rushing toward them with our own worry can make the wave grow larger. If he had jumped up, full of concern, speaking quickly, his own agitation would have mixed with hers. The atmosphere of the room would have become more unsettled, not less. Instead, he offered something different. He offered peace. He did not pretend her pain was not real. He did not turn away from her. But he held his own center. He remained rooted in stillness. And in the presence of that stillness, her own heart could begin to find its way back to calm. This is one of the quiet gifts we can offer to those we love. When someone is struggling, we do not always have to fix things or find the right words. Sometimes, the most helpful thing we can do is simply be at peace ourselves. Our calm becomes an invitation. Our steadiness becomes a shelter. The Buddha called this quality equanimity. It is the ability to be present with difficulty without being swept away by it. It is a kind of strength that looks like gentleness. It does not push away pain, but it does not drown in it either. It simply holds steady, like a mountain holds steady while clouds pass across its face. This equanimity is something we can all cultivate. Each time we practice being present without rushing to react, we strengthen this capacity within ourselves. Each time we offer our calm to someone who is struggling, we become a little more like that elder monk, a steady presence in a world that often feels unsteady. There is another story worth exploring, one that reveals how easily emotional states can be created by the words and actions of others. A woman had lost her husband. He had been ill for some time, and she had cared for him through the long months of his decline. When he finally passed peacefully in his sleep, she felt something she had not expected. She felt at ease. This surprised her. She had loved him deeply. They had shared decades together, but she had made her peace with his passing while he was still alive. She had said everything that needed to be said. She had held his hand through the difficult nights. And when he went, she felt complete. Sad, yes, but not distraught, not broken. There was a quiet acceptance in her heart. The day of the funeral arrived. Family gathered from distant places. The house filled with relatives she had not seen in years. And then a cousin approached her. The cousin opened her arms wide. Her face was a mask of sympathy and concern. "Oh, you poor thing," she said, wrapping the widow in an embrace. "How terrible this must be for you. How are you coping? I cannot imagine what you must be going through." Something shifted in the widow. Until that moment, she had been holding herself together naturally, without effort. But the cousin's words and tone communicated something powerful. "You should be falling apart. Your husband is dead. This is devastating. Why are you not crying?" It was as though a switch had been flipped. The widow felt tears welling up. The grief she had already processed came rushing back, not because she needed to feel it, but because it was expected of her. The social script demanded it, and her body complied. A son who watched this exchange understood what had happened. His mother had been at peace, genuinely at peace, with his father's passing. But the cousin, with nothing but good intentions, had pressed an emotional button. She had triggered a response by communicating what the widow was supposed to feel. This is the power of social conditioning. We learn from a young age what emotions are appropriate in what situations. We learn that funerals are for weeping, that weddings are for joy, that bad news should be met with dismay. These scripts run so deep that we often do not question them. We simply perform them, feeling what we have been taught to feel. But here is the liberating truth. These scripts are not reality. They are constructions. They are agreements, often unspoken, about how emotions should flow. And once we see them for what they are, we have a choice. We can follow the script, or we can honor what is actually true in our hearts. The widow did not need to grieve in that moment. She had already grieved. She had found acceptance. But the social pressure of the situation overrode her inner wisdom. Someone told her she should be suffering, and she believed them. What do these stories teach us? They reveal that our emotions are not as spontaneous as they seem. They are shaped by countless influences, many of which operate below the level of conscious awareness. The music we hear, the words people speak to us, the pace of conversation, the expressions on faces, the expectations of our culture, the rhythms of our environment, all of these are constantly building and rebuilding our emotional states. This is not a cause for despair. It is a cause for hope. If emotions were simply random, if they descended upon us from nowhere, we would be helpless before them. We would have no choice but to ride the waves, tossed about by forces beyond our understanding or control. But emotions are not random. They have causes. They have architecture, and architecture can be understood. Once it is understood, it can be influenced, not through force or suppression, but through awareness and wise choice. The Buddha spoke of this in terms of dependent origination. Nothing arises independently. Everything emerges from conditions. Our emotions are no exception. They arise because certain conditions are present. If we change the conditions, the emotions that arise will change as well. This does not mean we can control our emotions through willpower. It means something subtler and more profound. It means we can begin to notice the conditions that give rise to our emotional states. We can become aware of the triggers, the rhythms, the scripts, and with this awareness comes the possibility of choice. So how do we begin to work with the architecture of emotion in our own lives? The first step is simply observation. Begin to notice what influences your emotional state throughout the day. When you feel a shift in mood, pause and ask, what just happened? What did I hear, see, or experience in the moments before this feeling arose? Perhaps you will notice that certain music consistently brings you down or lifts you up. Perhaps you will observe that conversations with certain people leave you feeling drained, while others leave you feeling energized. Perhaps you will discover that the news you consume, the social media you scroll through, the entertainment you choose, all have subtle but significant effects on the weather of your heart. This is not about judgment. It is about information. You are gathering data about your own emotional architecture. You are learning what builds you up and what tears you down. The second step is wise choice. Once you understand what influences your emotional state, you can begin to make conscious decisions about what you allow into your life. This is not about avoiding all difficulty or creating a bubble of false positivity. It is about recognizing that you have some say in the conditions that shape your inner world. If you know that certain music tends to deepen melancholy, you can choose to limit your exposure to it, especially during vulnerable times. If you know that certain people consistently trigger anxiety or resentment, you can choose how much time to spend with them and how to prepare yourself before you do. If you know that the evening news leaves you feeling fearful and helpless, you can choose to stay informed through less sensationalistic sources. These are not acts of avoidance. They are acts of wisdom. The Buddha compared it to a person bitten by a poisonous snake. The wise person does not return to the place where the snake lives and allow themselves to be bitten again. They learn from the experience and choose differently. The third step is cultivation. Just as you can reduce exposure to conditions that build difficult emotions, you can increase exposure to conditions that build nourishing ones. You can seek out music that inspires you, people who uplift you, environments that bring you peace. You can create rituals and routines that support your well-being. You can design your life, to some extent, as an architect designs a building, with attention to what kind of atmosphere you want to create. And there is one more thing you can do, perhaps the most important of all. You can become a source of emotional calm for others. Remember the elder monk who sat in stillness while the grieving woman cried. Remember how his peace influenced her peace. This capacity is available to you as well. When someone you love is in distress, you do not have to panic along with them. You can be the calm in their storm. You can offer the gift of your presence, your groundedness, your steady breath. You can refuse to add urgency to urgency, fear to fear. This is not coldness or detachment. It is the deepest kind of compassion. You are not ignoring their pain. You are holding it in a larger space, a space of peace that can contain even the most difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them. The Buddha called this equanimity. It is one of the four sublime states, along with loving kindness, compassion, and joy. Equanimity is the capacity to be present to suffering without being swept away by it. It is the stillness at the center of the storm, the unshakable peace that can witness all things without losing itself. This equanimity is not something you either have or do not have. It is something you cultivate, moment by moment, through practice. Each time you choose not to amplify a difficult emotion, you strengthen your capacity for equanimity. Each time you remain present in the face of someone else's distress, without losing your own center, you are training in this sublime art. We began this exploration by asking where emotions come from. We have seen that they are not random, not arbitrary, but constructed from countless small influences, rhythms and sounds, words and expressions, social scripts and environmental cues. This understanding is liberating. It means we are not helpless before the storms of the heart. It means we can become, in some measure, architects of our own emotional lives. Not through control or suppression, but through awareness and wise choice. But there is an even deeper teaching hidden here. If we can construct emotions of distress, can we not also construct emotions of peace? If the auctioneer can build excitement through the rhythm of his voice, can we not build calm through the rhythm of our breath? If the filmmaker can create fear through darkness and suspense, can we not create safety through light and presence? If the well-meaning relative can trigger grief through her words, can we not offer words that trigger healing? The answer, of course, is yes. The same principles that build difficult emotions can be used to build nourishing ones. The same architecture serves both purposes. This is the promise of practice. Through meditation, we learn to create inner conditions of stillness and peace. Through mindfulness, we become aware of the conditions that disturb that peace, and we learn to work skillfully with them. Through wise attention, we cultivate the thoughts and perceptions that lead to joy, while releasing those that lead to suffering. We become architects of the heart. Not perfect architects. Not architects who can control every outcome, but architects who understand something about how the building works, who can make wise choices about what to construct and what to let go. This is a lifelong practice. It unfolds gradually, through countless small moments of awareness and choice. But each step matters. Each moment of noticing, each wise choice, each refusal to add fuel to the fire, these build upon one another. They create a new architecture, a new foundation for emotional life. And in time, what seemed impossible begins to seem natural. Peace, which once felt fragile and fleeting, becomes more stable. Joy, which once depended on circumstances, begins to arise from within. The storms still come, but you are no longer tossed about by them. You have become, in some measure, the captain of your own ship. Let us pause here for a moment. Take a breath. Feel the rhythm of your breathing, that ancient rhythm that has been with you since the moment of your birth. Notice the architecture of this present moment. What sounds are around you? What sensations in your body? What quality of light? What quality of air? And notice that you are the one who is aware of all this. You are the space in which the architecture arises. You are larger than any building, any construction, any emotion that passes through. Rest in that awareness. Let it hold you. And when you are ready, we will continue our journey together. We have been exploring how emotions are built. We have seen that they do not simply appear from nowhere, but arise from causes and conditions. The music we hear, the words spoken to us, the rhythms of our environment, all of these shape the weather of our hearts. Now let us look more closely at two of the most common difficult emotions that visit us. These are anger and fear. Nearly everyone knows them well. They come to us in different forms and with different faces, but their patterns are remarkably similar. And understanding these patterns is the first step toward finding peace with them. There is an image from the Buddhist tradition that can help us here. It is the image of fire. Fire is a powerful force. It can warm us on cold nights and cook our food. But when it grows beyond our control, it can destroy everything we love. A single spark, left unattended, can become a blaze that consumes an entire forest. Our difficult emotions work in much the same way. Anger begins as a small spark. Perhaps someone says something unkind. Perhaps we feel overlooked or dismissed. Perhaps something simply does not go the way we hoped. In that first moment, there is just a flicker, a slight heat in the chest, a tightening of the jaw, nothing more. But what happens next makes all the difference. If we notice the spark and let it be, it often fades on its own. Like a match that burns for a moment and then goes out, the initial flash of irritation passes. Our attention moves on to other things, and the spark never becomes a flame. But if we do not notice, or if we begin to feed the spark with our thoughts, something else happens. We replay the offending moment in our minds. We think about what the person said, what they meant by it, how unfair it was. We imagine what we should have said in response. We rehearse arguments we will never have. And with each thought, we add another piece of kindling to the fire. Before long, what began as a small spark has become something much larger. The heat spreads through our body. Our thoughts become consumed by the grievance. We find it hard to think about anything else. The fire has taken hold. This is how anger grows. Not through a single event, but through the repeated attention we give to that event. The original slight may have lasted only a moment, but our suffering can last for hours, days, even years, depending on how long we continue to feed the flames. Let us explore this with a simple example. Imagine that someone calls you a hurtful name. Perhaps they call you foolish, or lazy, or selfish. In the moment they say it, you feel a sting. This is natural. No one enjoys being spoken to unkindly. But here is what often happens next. Long after the person has gone, long after the conversation has ended, you find yourself thinking about what they said. You replay their words in your mind. How could they say that to me? What right do they have? I am not foolish. I am not lazy. They do not know me at all. And each time you remember their words, it is as though they are saying them to you again. Each time you replay the moment, you allow the sting to return. The person may have insulted you once, but in your own mind, you let them insult you 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. Who is creating this suffering? The other person spoke once and moved on with their day. They may have forgotten the whole thing, but you are still there, replaying it, feeling the hurt again and again. This is one of the Buddha's most practical teachings. He said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. The coal is hot. That is simply its nature. But we are the ones who choose to keep holding it. We are the ones who refuse to let it go. let us explore a story that shows how this works in daily life. A traveler arrived at an airport one afternoon, ready to fly home after a long trip. He had been away for many days, and he was looking forward to sleeping in his own bed, seeing his family, returning to his familiar routines. But when he reached the departure gate, he learned that his flight had been delayed. Not by an hour or two, but by many hours. There had been a problem with the aircraft, and it would not be ready until the following morning. The traveler watched as others received the same news. Some of them became very upset. Their voices rose as they spoke to the airline staff. Their faces grew tight with frustration. "This is unacceptable," one man said. "I have important meetings. I cannot wait until tomorrow. You must do something." The staff listened patiently. They apologized. They explained that there was nothing they could do. The plane would not fly until it was safe to fly. But the upset travelers kept insisting, kept arguing, kept expressing their displeasure. And what changed? Nothing. The plane did not leave any sooner. The meetings were still missed. The only thing that happened was that these travelers added hours of unhappiness to their delay. They suffered twice, once because of the delay itself, and again because of their own reaction to it. The first traveler watched all of this quietly. He too was disappointed. He too had hoped to be home that night. But he understood something the others did not seem to understand. His frustration would not change the situation. His anger would not repair the aircraft. The only thing his upset could accomplish was to make him miserable. So he took a breath. He called his family to let them know. He found a quiet corner of the airport, sat down, and opened a book he had been meaning to read. He even practiced a little meditation, using the unexpected free time to settle his mind. When the flight finally departed the next morning, he boarded feeling rested and peaceful. The other travelers boarded feeling exhausted and drained, having spent the night feeding their frustration. The delay was the same for everyone. The difference was in how they met it. There is an old saying, "A single spark can start a fire that burns down 1,000 trees." Those who have lived near forests know how true this is. A great fire does not begin as a great fire. It begins as something tiny, a spark from a campfire, a flash of lightning, the focused light of the sun through a piece of glass. In that first moment, it would be so easy to extinguish. A cup of water, a handful of dirt, even a firm stamp of the foot could put it out. But if no one notices, or if no one acts, the spark catches on dry leaves. The leaves ignite the twigs. The twigs ignite the branches. Before long, the fire has climbed into the treetops, and now there is nothing anyone can do. The blaze will burn until it has consumed everything in its path. Our emotions follow this same pattern. The earlier we catch them, the easier they are to work with. When anger is just a spark, just a slight tightness in the chest, a moment of mindful awareness can be enough to let it pass. But once anger has become a roaring fire, once it has consumed our thoughts and hijacked our body, it is much harder to find our way back to peace. This is why the Buddha placed such emphasis on mindfulness. Not because awareness is some kind of spiritual achievement, but because it is deeply practical. When we are aware of what is arising in us, we can respond with wisdom. When we are not aware, we simply react, and our reactions often make things worse. The practice is simple, though not always easy. We learn to notice the small things, the first stirrings of irritation, the earliest whispers of fear. We train ourselves to recognize these visitors when they are still at the door, before they have moved in and taken over the house. And when we notice them, we do not fight them. We simply acknowledge that they are present. There is some frustration arising. I notice a little anxiety in my body. This simple act of recognition creates a space, a gap between the stimulus and our response. In that gap, wisdom can arise. Anger is one kind of fire. Fear is another. Fear, too, begins as a spark. A thought arises, a possibility, a what if. What if I lose my job? What if my loved one becomes ill? What if something goes wrong? In that first moment, the thought is just a thought. It has no more substance than a cloud passing through the sky. But if we grab hold of that thought, if we begin to elaborate on it, if we imagine all the terrible things that might happen, the fear begins to grow. We picture the worst outcomes in vivid detail. We feel them in our bodies as though they were already happening. Our hearts race. Our stomachs tighten. We become afraid of something that exists only in our imagination. This is the strange nature of fear. Most of what we fear never comes to pass. We worry about disasters that do not happen, conversations that never take place, rejections that never arrive. We live through the suffering in our minds again and again, even though the actual event may never occur. The Buddha observed that human beings create a great deal of their own suffering in this way. There is no fear for one whose mind is not filled with desires, he taught. It is our attachment to particular outcomes, our insistence that life should go a certain way, that makes us vulnerable to fear. When we can hold our hopes more lightly, fear loses much of its power. Let us explore a story about fear and how easily our minds can create troubles that do not exist. In a forest monastery, there lived a young monk who had only recently begun his training. He was earnest and sincere, eager to learn the ways of the contemplative life. But he was also young, and his mind was still filled with the imaginings of youth. In the village near the monastery, there were many stories about the forest. The old people spoke of spirits that wandered among the trees at night. They told tales of strange sounds and mysterious presences. These stories had been passed down for generations, and nearly everyone in the region had grown up hearing them. The young monk had heard these stories too. During the day, in the bright sunlight, he did not think much of them. But when night fell, and the shadows grew long, and the forest filled with unfamiliar sounds, the stories would come back to him. One evening, the monastery held a special ceremony. It was a night of extended meditation, and all the monks were expected to sit in the main hall until dawn. For the senior monks, this was a welcome opportunity for deep practice. For the young monk, it was something else entirely. He sat in the flickering candlelight, listening to the sounds of the night, remembering every story he had ever heard. As the hours passed, his need to visit the small building behind the hall became urgent. But to reach it, he would have to walk outside, through the darkness, past the great trees whose branches creaked and swayed in the wind. He waited as long as he could. He told himself there was nothing to fear. But his body would not listen to his reason. And finally, when he could wait no longer, he gathered his courage and stepped outside. The night air was cool. The moon cast pale light through the leaves. The young monk walked quickly, his heart beating fast, until he reached the small building and slipped inside. He had only been there a few moments when he heard something. Footsteps, soft but unmistakable, approaching through the darkness. Then, at the door, a sound that made his blood run cold. A scratching, gentle but persistent, as though something was trying to get in. The young monk pressed himself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. The scratching continued. He was certain that something terrible was just outside, something from the old stories, something that had come for him. He did not leave that small building for the rest of the night. He sat huddled in the corner, listening to the occasional scratching, imagining all manner of dreadful things. By the time dawn finally came, he was exhausted and trembling. When he emerged into the morning light, he told the other monks what had happened. "Something came to the door," he said. "I heard it scratching. It was there for hours." An older monk smiled gently and took him around to the back of the small building. There, in the soft earth, were tiny footprints. And sitting in a patch of sunlight, cleaning its whiskers, was a small forest creature, something like a cat but wilder, a gentle animal that lived in the woods. "This little one comes every night," the older monk explained. "There is a bowl of water inside that building, and she comes to drink from it. She was not trying to frighten you. She was just thirsty." The young monk looked at the small creature, so harmless in the morning light, and felt something shift inside him. He had spent the whole night in terror. He had imagined spirits and monsters and all manner of darkness. And all along, it had been this small, thirsty animal, asking politely to be let in. This story is not really about spirits or forest creatures. It is about the mind and what it can create when fear takes hold. The young monk heard a sound. That was all, just a sound. But his mind, filled with old stories and vivid imaginings, transformed that sound into something terrifying. He spent hours suffering, not because of anything that was actually happening, but because of what he believed was happening. How often do we do the same thing? We hear a piece of news and immediately imagine the worst. We notice a small symptom in our body and convince ourselves of serious illness. We sense a distance in a friend's manner and assume we have done something wrong. Our minds are so quick to fill in the gaps, so eager to construct stories, and so often those stories are far darker than reality. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from how we interpret what happens. "We are what we think," he said. "All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world." The young monk made a world of terror out of a thirsty animal. We all do something similar, in our own ways, every day. We make worlds of worry out of uncertain futures. We make worlds of hurt out of careless words. We make worlds of anxiety out of situations that may never come to pass. Seeing this is the beginning of freedom. When we understand that our mind is constructing much of what we experience, we can begin to question those constructions. We can ask ourselves, is this really true? Or is this a story I am telling myself? Am I responding to what is actually happening, or to what I imagine might be happening? So what are we to do with these fires of anger and fear? The first step, as we have seen, is simply to notice them, to catch the spark before it becomes a blaze, to recognize the first whispers of irritation or worry, before they grow into something overwhelming. The second step is to stop adding fuel. When we notice that we are replaying an upsetting moment in our minds, we can gently let it go. When we notice that we are imagining worst-case scenarios, we can bring ourselves back to the present moment, to what is actually happening right now. This is not suppression. We are not pushing the emotion away or pretending it does not exist. We are simply choosing not to feed it. We are declining the invitation to rehearse grievances or elaborate on fears. We are letting the fire die down naturally by removing the fuel that keeps it burning. The third step is to investigate gently. When we are calm enough to do so, we can look at the anger or fear with curiosity. What is this really about? What am I believing right now? Is there another way to see this situation? Often, when we look closely at our difficult emotions, we find that they are based on misunderstandings, on assumptions that may not be true. Like the young monk who feared a spirit and found a small animal, we may discover that our suffering has been built on a story, not on reality. And the fourth step is kindness. We will speak more of this in the teachings to come. But for now, know that the path through difficult emotions is not paved with harshness toward ourselves. When we notice anger arising, we do not need to become angry at our anger. When we notice fear, we do not need to fear our fear. We can meet these visitors with gentleness, acknowledging their presence without letting them take over the house. There is a beautiful image in the Buddhist tradition of cooling waters that soothe the fires of the heart. Imagine a clear, still lake on a summer day. The water is cool and refreshing. When you step into it, the heat of the day dissolves. Your body relaxes. Your mind grows calm. Mindfulness is like this lake. When the fires of anger and fear are burning, we can step into the cool waters of awareness. We can immerse ourselves in the present moment, letting go of the stories and imaginings that have been fueling the flames. We can rest in what is actually here, actually now, rather than in what might be or what we fear will be. This does not mean the fire vanishes instantly. Sometimes it takes time for strong emotions to cool. But each moment of awareness is like a cup of water poured on the flames. Each time we return to the present, we remove a piece of fuel. Slowly, gradually, the fire dies down. And in time, we learn to recognize the sparks earlier and earlier. We become more skilled at noticing when we are starting to feed a fire. We catch ourselves in the act of rehearsing a grievance or elaborating a fear, and we can make a different choice. This is the promise of practice. Not that we will never feel anger or fear again. These emotions are part of being human, but we can change our relationship with them. We can learn to let them arise and pass without being consumed. We can become like a fireplace rather than a forest, able to contain the flames, to warm ourselves by them without being burned. Let us pause here for a moment. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the coolness of the air entering your body. If there are any small fires burning in you right now, any sparks of worry or irritation, simply notice them. You do not need to do anything about them. Just acknowledge their presence, the way you might notice a candle flame across the room, and rest in the awareness that is larger than any fire, the awareness that can hold all things, even difficult things, with peace. When you are ready, we will continue our journey together. we have been learning about the fires that can burn within us. We have seen how anger and fear begin as small sparks and grow into something larger when we feed them with our thoughts. We have explored the importance of catching these sparks early before they become blazes that are difficult to contain. But what do we do when the fire has already taken hold? What do we do when we find ourselves in the grip of a difficult emotion? When grief has settled into our bones? When anxiety has wrapped itself around our chest? When disappointment has dimmed the light in our eyes? This is where the path of wisdom becomes most practical. This is where we learn not just to understand our emotions, but to meet them in a way that leads toward healing. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a teaching called the Eightfold Path. It is a map for living wisely, a guide for finding our way through the complexities of human existence. The path has 8 parts, each supporting the others, like the spokes of a wheel that work together to carry us forward. The second part of this path is particularly relevant to our exploration. It is called right intention, or sometimes right attitude, and it holds the key to transforming our relationship with difficult emotions. Before we explore this teaching, let us pause to consider something simple but profound. The way we meet an experience shapes what that experience becomes. Think of 2 people caught in a rainstorm. One curses the weather, hunches their shoulders, and hurries through the streets with a scowl on their face. The other tilts their head back, feels the drops on their skin, and remembers what it was like to play in the rain as a child. The storm is the same for both, but the experience is entirely different. This is the power of attitude. It does not change what happens to us, but it changes everything about how we live with what happens. It is the lens through which we see the world, and that lens colors everything. The Buddha understood this deeply. He saw that human beings do not simply experience life. They interpret it. They react to it. They add layers of meaning and judgment to every moment. And these additions, these attitudes, determine whether a given experience leads to suffering or to peace. This is why right attitude is such an important part of the path. It is not about pretending that difficult things are not difficult. It is not about forcing a smile when our hearts are heavy. It is about learning to meet whatever arises with wisdom rather than reactivity, with kindness rather than harshness, with openness rather than resistance. The teaching on right attitude points to 3 qualities that help us meet life wisely. These are not rules to follow or goals to achieve. They are more like flavors, like qualities of heart that we can cultivate over time. When they are present, our relationship with difficulty naturally transforms. The first quality is letting go. The second quality is kindness. The third quality is gentleness. Let us explore each of these in turn, because together they offer a complete approach to working with whatever emotions arise in us. Of all the Buddhist teachings, letting go is perhaps the most misunderstood. When people first hear this teaching, they often think it means getting rid of things. They think they are supposed to let go of their sadness, let go of their fear, let go of whatever is troubling them. And so they try to push these things away, to make them disappear, to force them out of their hearts. But this is not what letting go means at all. True letting go is not about getting rid of anything. It is about releasing our grip on something else entirely. It is about letting go of the one who is trying to control. Consider what happens when a difficult emotion arises. Grief comes, perhaps, after a loss. In the first moment, there is simply the feeling itself, the heaviness in the chest, the ache in the heart. But almost immediately, something else appears. A voice in the mind that says, I should not feel this way. I need to get over this. I have to make this feeling go away. This voice is what we might call the controller. It is the part of us that believes we should be able to manage our inner world, to decide what we feel and when we feel it. It looks at the grief and says, this is not acceptable. This must change. And here is the great irony. The controller, in its attempt to fix things, almost always makes them worse. When we try to push away sadness, the sadness does not leave. It simply goes underground, where it festers and grows. When we try to force ourselves to stop being anxious, the anxiety often intensifies. We become anxious about being anxious. We add a second layer of difficulty on top of the first. True letting go means releasing this controller. It means allowing the emotion to be present without immediately trying to change it. It means saying, this is what I am feeling right now. I do not have to fix it. I do not have to make it go away. I can simply let it be. This is a profound shift. Instead of fighting with our experience, we make room for it. Instead of clenching against the wave, we let it wash through us. The emotion is still there, but our relationship with it has changed. We are no longer at war with ourselves. Let us look more closely at this controller, because understanding it can bring great freedom. The controller is the part of us that believes things should be other than they are. It looks at what is happening and says, no, not this. Something else. Something better. It is always reaching for a different moment, a different feeling, a different version of ourselves. When we are sad, the controller says we should be happy. When we are afraid, it says we should be brave. When we are confused, it says we should have answers. It has an image of how we should be, and it is constantly comparing our actual experience to that image. This comparison is exhausting. It keeps us in a constant state of struggle, always trying to get somewhere other than where we are. And it prevents us from actually being present to our experience, which is the only place where healing can happen. The controller means well. It is trying to protect us from pain. It believes that if it can just manage things properly, if it can just keep everything under control, we will be safe. But its methods do not work. You cannot control your way to peace. You cannot manage your way to freedom. The harder you grip, the more suffering you create. Letting go means recognizing this. It means seeing the controller for what it is, a well-meaning but misguided attempt to escape the unavoidable. And it means gently, kindly putting that controller to rest. This does not mean becoming passive or helpless. It does not mean giving up on life or accepting everything without discernment. It means recognizing that there is a time for action and a time for acceptance. When a difficult emotion is present, the wise response is usually acceptance first, action later. First, we let the feeling be. Then, when we are calm and clear, we can decide what, if anything, needs to be done. The second quality of right attitude is kindness. And this kindness extends not only to others, but to ourselves. It extends to our own hearts, our own struggles, our own difficult emotions. This may sound strange at first. We are accustomed to thinking of kindness as something we offer to other people. We comfort a friend who is sad. We help a neighbor who is struggling. We speak gently to a child who is afraid. But when it comes to our own inner experience, we are often much harsher. Notice how you speak to yourself when you are having a hard time. Notice the tone of the inner voice. Is it patient and understanding? Or is it critical and demanding? Do you treat yourself with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend? Or do you hold yourself to an impossible standard, berating yourself when you fall short? For many people, the inner voice is far from kind. It says things like, "What is wrong with you? Why can you not get over this? You should be stronger than this. You are being ridiculous." This voice believes it is being helpful. It believes that if it is hard enough on us, we will somehow improve. But criticism rarely leads to growth. It usually leads to shame, which only makes things worse. The Buddha taught a different way. He taught that all beings deserve compassion, including ourselves. He taught that we can meet our own suffering with the same tenderness we would offer to someone we love. What would it mean to be kind to your own difficult emotions? When sadness arises, instead of saying, "I should not feel this way," you might say, "This is a moment of sorrow. Sorrow is part of life. May I be gentle with myself right now." When fear arises, instead of saying, "I am so weak for feeling this," you might say, "Fear has come to visit. It is an old friend trying to keep me safe. I can acknowledge it without letting it take over." When disappointment arises, instead of saying, "I always mess things up," you might say, "This hurts. It is okay that it hurts. I do not have to be perfect to be worthy of my own kindness." This shift in tone makes an enormous difference. When we meet our emotions with kindness, they begin to soften. The tight knot in the chest loosens. The heaviness lifts, even if only a little. We create space for the emotion to move through us, rather than getting stuck. There is a beautiful way of thinking about our emotions that can help us practice this kindness. We can think of them as visitors to the house of our heart. Some visitors are welcome. Joy arrives, and we open the door wide. Contentment comes, and we invite it to stay as long as it likes. Love appears, and we embrace it warmly. Other visitors are less welcome. Grief knocks at the door, and we wish we could pretend we are not home. Anger arrives, and we want to turn it away. Fear appears on the doorstep, and we feel the urge to slam the door shut. But here is the wisdom. All visitors deserve to be treated with basic hospitality. Even the unwelcome ones. Even the difficult ones. They have come for a reason. They have something to show us, something to teach us. If we turn them away without listening, they will only return, often more insistently than before. This does not mean letting visitors take over the house. It does not mean allowing anger to smash the furniture or fear to lock all the doors. It means acknowledging their presence with respect. It means saying, "I see you. You are welcome to sit for a while. I will not pretend you are not here." When we treat our emotions this way, something interesting happens. They become less overwhelming. They lose some of their power to disturb us. It is as though they simply needed to be seen, to be acknowledged, and once they are, they can begin to settle. The ancient poet Rumi wrote about this beautifully. He suggested that we should welcome all our inner experiences as guests, even the difficult ones, because each has been sent as a guide. This is the essence of kindness toward our emotions. We stop treating them as enemies to be defeated and start treating them as messengers to be heard. The third quality of right attitude is gentleness. It is closely related to kindness, but it points to something specific about how we engage with our inner world. Gentleness is about the quality of our touch, the softness of our approach. Think about how you might handle something precious and fragile. A delicate flower, a sleeping child, an ancient piece of pottery. You would not grab it roughly or squeeze it tightly. You would hold it with care, with reverence, with attention. Our hearts are like this. They are precious. They are, in their way, fragile. They deserve to be handled with care. But so often, we are rough with ourselves. We force ourselves to feel what we think we should feel. We push ourselves to get over things before we are ready. We demand that our hearts perform on command, opening and closing according to our expectations. This roughness causes harm. When we are harsh with our emotions, they become more entrenched. When we try to force ourselves to change, we create resistance. It is like trying to open a flower by pulling apart its petals. The flower is destroyed in the process. Gentleness takes a different approach. It does not force anything. It creates the conditions for natural unfolding. It trusts that, given enough space and care, the heart knows how to heal itself. This is one of the most important things to understand about emotional healing. We do not heal by forcing ourselves to change. We heal by creating an environment of safety and kindness in which change can happen naturally. We heal by being gentle with ourselves, patient with our process, trusting in our own capacity to find our way. There is a common pattern that many of us fall into when difficult emotions arise. The Buddha gave it a name that we might translate as double suffering or suffering twice. Here is how it works. Something difficult happens, and a painful emotion arises. This is the first suffering. It is often unavoidable. Life brings loss, disappointment, fear, frustration. These are part of the human experience. But then, on top of this first suffering, we add a second layer. We become upset about being upset. We get angry at ourselves for feeling angry. We feel guilty about feeling sad. We become anxious about our anxiety. This second layer is entirely optional. It is created by our own reaction to the first layer. And often, it causes more pain than the original difficulty. Think about it. You feel sad about something. That is painful, but it is a clean pain, a natural response to loss or disappointment. But then the inner critic appears. Why are you still sad about this? You should be over it by now. What is wrong with you? Now you feel sad, and you feel bad about feeling sad. The suffering has doubled. Or consider anxiety. You feel worried about something. This is uncomfortable, but manageable. But then you start worrying about the fact that you are worrying. I should not be so anxious. Something must be wrong with me. What if this anxiety never goes away? Now, you are caught in a spiral, anxiety feeding on itself, growing larger with each turn. This pattern can continue. We can feel angry about feeling guilty about feeling sad. We can feel anxious about feeling depressed, about feeling anxious. The layers multiply, each one adding to our suffering. The way out of this trap is the attitude we have been exploring. Letting go of the controller. meeting our emotions with kindness, being gentle with ourselves. When we can simply allow the first suffering to be present, without adding layers of judgment and resistance, we prevent the second suffering from arising. The pain is still there, but it is simple pain, clean pain, pain that can move through us and eventually pass. Let us explore a story that shows what this attitude looks like in daily life. There was once a gardener who tended a small plot of land behind her home. She loved her garden deeply. She knew every plant, every flower, every corner of soil. She spent her mornings among the green growing things, and this brought her great joy. But the gardener could not control the weather. Some days, the sun shone bright and warm, and the plants lifted their leaves toward the light. The gardener would smile and say, "What a beautiful day for the garden." Other days, clouds gathered and rain fell in sheets. The flowers bowed under the weight of water. The paths turned to mud. The gardener could not work as she wished. At first, the gardener would become frustrated on rainy days. She would stand at her window, frowning at the sky, wishing the rain would stop. "Why must it rain today?" she would ask. "I had so much I wanted to do." The rainy days felt like lost days, wasted days, days that should not have happened. But over time, the gardener grew wiser. She began to see that her frustration did not stop the rain. It only added unhappiness to a day that was already grey. The rain fell whether she welcomed it or not. Her mood was the only thing she could influence. So she changed her approach. When rain came, she would say, "Ah, the garden is being watered. The plants are drinking. This is part of the cycle." She would use the time to sharpen her tools, to plan new plantings, to rest her body from the work of sunnier days. She did not pretend to love the rain. She did not force herself to feel joy when she felt disappointment. But she stopped adding resistance to the reality of the moment. She let the rainy days be rainy days, without insisting they should be something else. And a strange thing happened. The rainy days became easier, not because they changed, but because she stopped fighting them. She found that there was a kind of peace available even in the grey and the wet, a peace that came from accepting what was. This is what right attitude looks like in practice. We cannot control the weather of our lives. We cannot stop the difficult emotions from arising any more than the gardener could stop the rain. But we can change how we meet these experiences. We can let go of our insistence that things be other than they are. We can find a way to be at peace, even on rainy days. Let us explore another image that can help us understand this approach. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. The water moves continuously, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always flowing. Now imagine a large rock in the middle of the river. What happens? The water does not stop when it meets the rock. It does not fight the rock or try to destroy it. It simply flows around it, continuing on its way. The rock is there, solid and immovable, but the river is not troubled by it. It accepts the rock as part of the landscape and finds its way forward. Our awareness can be like this river. Emotions arise like rocks in the stream. Sadness appears. Fear takes form. Disappointment becomes solid for a time. These are real. They are present. They cannot simply be wished away. But if our awareness is flowing and open, like the river, we can move around these obstacles without getting stuck. We acknowledge them, we accept their presence, and we continue to flow. The trouble comes when we stop flowing. When we encounter a painful emotion and we freeze, when we brace ourselves against it, when we try to push it out of the way or pretend it is not there, we are like a river that has stopped moving. The water pools and stagnates. What was once alive and flowing becomes stuck and still. This is what happens when we resist our emotions. The natural flow of experience stops. We become fixated on the difficulty, unable to move past it, unable to find our way around. And the longer we stay stuck, the more uncomfortable we become. The practice is to keep flowing, to meet whatever arises with the open, accepting quality of water, to let emotions be present without clenching against them, to trust that, like all things, they will eventually pass, and the river will continue on its way. There is another way to understand what we are doing when we practice right attitude. The Buddha spoke often of seeds and fruit, of causes and effects that unfold over time. Every action we take, he taught, plants a seed. Every thought we think, every word we speak, every choice we make, these are all seeds dropped into the soil of our lives. Some seeds will grow into flowers, others will grow into thorns. What we harvest tomorrow depends on what we plant today. This is especially true of our inner actions, the way we meet our own experience. When a difficult emotion arises, we have a choice. We can meet it with harshness, with resistance, with self-criticism. This plants seeds of more difficulty. Or we can meet it with letting go, with kindness, with gentleness. This plants seeds of peace. The fruit does not appear immediately. Seeds take time to grow. But over days, weeks, months, and years, the way we habitually respond to our emotions shapes the landscape of our inner world. If we have been planting seeds of self-compassion, we will find that compassion growing stronger within us. If we have been planting seeds of acceptance, we will find acceptance becoming more natural. This is why the practice matters so much, even in small moments that seem insignificant. Every time you meet a difficult emotion with kindness instead of criticism, you are planting a seed. Every time you let go of the controller and simply allow your experience to be, you are planting a seed. These seeds accumulate. They grow. And in time, they transform the garden of your heart. Let us bring these teachings together into a simple approach that you can use whenever a difficult emotion arises. First, notice what is happening. Bring your attention to the present moment. Feel what you are feeling. Name it if you can. This is sadness. This is fear. This is frustration. This simple act of recognition creates a small space, a moment of awareness between you and the emotion. Second, let go of the controller. Notice if there is a voice saying that you should not feel this way, that you need to fix this, that something is wrong. Gently set that voice aside. You do not need to manage this moment. You can simply be with it. Third, offer kindness. Speak to yourself as you would speak to a dear friend. This is hard. It is okay that this is hard. I am allowed to feel this way. Let your heart soften toward your own experience. Fourth, be gentle. Do not force anything. Do not demand that the emotion leave on your schedule. Trust that it will move through you in its own time. Create the conditions for healing by being patient and tender with yourself. And finally, remember that this too will pass. Whatever you are feeling, however solid it seems, is impermanent. It arose from causes and conditions. When those causes and conditions change, the emotion will change too. You do not have to carry this forever. You only have to be with it now. Let us take a moment now to practice what we have been exploring. Settle into your body. Feel your breath moving in and out. Let your shoulders relax. Let your face soften. Now, gently bring to mind something that has been troubling you. It does not need to be the biggest difficulty in your life. Even a small worry or irritation will do. Just let it be present, lightly, like a cloud floating through the sky of your awareness. Notice how this feels in your body. Perhaps there is a tightness somewhere, perhaps a heaviness. Just notice, without trying to change anything. Now, silently offer yourself some kindness. You might say, "This is a moment of difficulty. Difficulty is part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment." Feel the quality of those words. Let them soften the edges of the experience. You are not trying to make the difficulty disappear. You are simply meeting it with warmth, with care, with the same compassion you would offer to someone you love. Stay here for a few breaths. Let the kindness sink in. Let it do its gentle work. And when you are ready, let the difficulty fade into the background. Return your attention to your breath, to the simple sensation of being alive in this moment. This is the practice. It is simple, but it is not always easy. It asks us to be with what is, rather than fighting against it. It asks us to treat ourselves with a tenderness that many of us have never learned. But with time, with patience, it becomes more natural. And the fruit it bears is nothing less than peace. You may find that the difficulty does not dissolve immediately. That is perfectly fine. Healing is not always instant. Sometimes an emotion needs to be held in kindness many times before it begins to soften. Sometimes we need to practice letting go again and again before the controller truly rests. Be patient with this process. Be patient with yourself. You are learning a new way of being with your own heart. And new learning takes time. The fact that you are here, listening, exploring, already shows a willingness to grow. That willingness is itself a form of kindness toward yourself. Take a moment now to rest. Feel your body breathing. Notice the space around you, the sounds, the quality of the air. And when you are ready, we will continue our journey together. We have been learning how to meet difficult emotions with wisdom. We have explored the art of letting go, the practice of kindness toward ourselves, and the quality of gentleness that allows healing to unfold naturally. These are powerful teachings, and they can transform our relationship with whatever arises in our hearts. Now we turn to one of the most ancient and universal truths. It is a truth that has been spoken in every culture, in every age, by teachers and grandmothers, by poets and kings. It is so simple that a child can understand it. And yet it is so profound that a lifetime is barely enough to fully absorb its meaning. The truth is this: everything changes. Nothing stays the same forever. Whatever is happening now, whether beautiful or painful, will eventually pass. This may sound obvious. Of course things change. We all know this. But there is a difference between knowing something in our minds and knowing it in our bones. There is a difference between understanding impermanence as an idea and living with impermanence as a felt reality. When we truly take this teaching into our hearts, something shifts. The difficult times become more bearable because we know they will not last forever. The good times become more precious because we know they too will pass. We stop clinging so tightly to pleasure and pushing so hard against pain. We begin to flow with the river of life, rather than trying to build dams that will only break. This is the gift of impermanence, not a reason for despair, but a doorway to freedom. Let us explore a story that has been told in many lands, in many forms, across many centuries. It is a story about a ring and the 4 words inscribed upon it. Long ago, in a kingdom surrounded by mountains and forests, there lived a young ruler who had come to power before he was ready. His father, the old king, had passed away unexpectedly, and the young man found himself sitting on the throne with a crown too heavy for his head. He was intelligent and good-hearted, this young ruler. He wanted to lead his people well, but he had not yet learned the deeper lessons of life, the lessons that only time and experience can teach. And because of this, he was tossed about by the circumstances of his rule like a small boat on a stormy sea. When things went well in the kingdom, when the harvests were plentiful and the people content, the young ruler would be overjoyed. He would declare festivals and celebrations. He would spend lavishly on feasts and entertainments. "These are golden times," he would announce. "Let us rejoice without restraint." But because he spent so much energy celebrating, he neglected the quieter work of governance. The roads fell into disrepair. The granaries were not properly stocked. The needs of the future were forgotten in the pleasures of the present. And so the good times never lasted very long. When difficulties came, as difficulties always do, the young ruler would fall into despair. If the rains failed or if troubles arose at the borders, he would retreat to his chambers and refuse to see anyone. "All is lost," he would say. "There is no point in trying. The darkness will never end." But because he spent so much energy despairing, he failed to do the work that difficult times require. Problems that could have been solved grew worse. Challenges that could have been met went unaddressed. And the suffering of his people, which might have been brief, stretched on and on. The ministers who served the young ruler watched all this with growing concern. They could see that their king's way of responding to life was causing great harm, both to himself and to his kingdom. But they did not know how to help him. A ruler does not easily take advice, especially when that advice touches on his deepest patterns of heart and mind. One day, the wisest of the ministers had an idea. He gathered his colleagues and shared his plan. "We cannot tell the king how to feel," he said. "We cannot lecture him about wisdom. But perhaps we can offer him something that will teach him gently, without words, over time." The ministers agreed to the plan, and they sent for the finest goldsmith in the kingdom. When she arrived, they gave her a commission unlike any she had received before. "We want you to make a ring," they said. "It must be beautiful enough for a king to wear with pride. And on the outside of the ring, we want you to inscribe 4 words." The goldsmith listened carefully as they told her the words. She smiled, understanding immediately what the ministers were trying to do. She set to work with all her skill, and in a few weeks, she returned with a ring of elegant simplicity. It was made of gold, but not ostentatiously so. It was the kind of ring a person could wear every day, in all circumstances, without it ever feeling out of place. And around the outside, in letters small enough to be noticed only by the wearer, were inscribed the 4 words, "This too will pass." The ministers presented the ring to the young ruler as a gift. They did not explain its meaning. They did not offer instructions on how to use it. They simply asked him to wear it always, in good times and in bad, and to look upon the words whenever he wished. The young ruler, touched by the gesture, placed the ring on his finger. At first, nothing seemed to change. The young ruler continued as before, celebrating wildly when things went well, despairing deeply when they did not. The ring sat on his finger, its message unheeded. But slowly, gradually, something began to shift. During one particularly dark time, when drought had come to the land and the people were struggling, the young ruler sat alone in his chambers, sunk in hopelessness. His eyes fell upon the ring, and almost without thinking, he read the words inscribed there. "This too will pass." He read them again, and something in his heart stirred. The drought was real. The suffering was real. He could not make these things disappear by wishing them away. But the words on the ring reminded him of something he had forgotten. This moment, however painful, was not permanent. It was not the end of the story. Things would change, as they always do. The rains would return. The crops would grow again. This too would pass. And if that was true, then despair was not the only option. If the darkness was temporary, then there was reason to keep working, to keep trying, to do what could be done to help his people through the difficult time. Hope returned to his heart, not as a denial of reality, but as a recognition that reality is always changing. The young ruler rose from his chair. He called his ministers. He began to do the work that needed to be done. The drought did pass, in time. The rains came. Life returned to normal. And when the celebrations began, the young ruler found himself looking at the ring again. This too will pass. The good times were also temporary. They too would change. This was not a sad thought, but a sobering one. It reminded him not to take the present happiness for granted. It reminded him to enjoy the sweetness of the moment, while also preparing for the inevitable changes to come. It reminded him to be grateful, and also to be wise. As the years passed, the young ruler grew into a wise king. He still felt joy in good times and sorrow in difficult ones. He was human, after all, and humans feel. But his relationship with these feelings had changed. When hardship came, he no longer drowned in despair. He would look at the ring and remember that this too would pass. This knowledge gave him the strength to keep working, to keep caring for his people, to do what needed to be done even when everything felt dark. And because he kept working, the hard times did not last as long as they once had. When prosperity came, he no longer lost himself in celebration. He would look at the ring and remember that this too would pass. This knowledge helped him stay humble, stay attentive, stay focused on the work of building a kingdom that could weather any storm. And because he stayed attentive, the good times lasted longer than they ever had before. The kingdom flourished as never before. The people came to love their king, not because he was perfect, but because he was steady. In times of trouble, he was a calm presence, a source of hope. In times of ease, he was a gentle reminder not to become complacent. He had learned the secret of the ring. And what was that secret? Simply this, that everything changes, and knowing this changes everything. The wise king lived to an old age. When the time came for him to pass on the throne to his own child, he had one gift to give, more precious than any treasure in the royal vaults. He removed the ring from his finger and placed it in the palm of the young heir. "This ring has been my greatest teacher," he said. "Wear it always. Read its message often. Let it remind you of what I have learned, that no storm lasts forever, and no summer stays eternally warm. In this simple truth lies all the wisdom you need to lead with grace." The young heir looked at the ring, at the 4 small words inscribed upon it. And though many years of learning still lay ahead, a seed of understanding was planted in that moment, a seed that would grow into the same deep wisdom that had guided the old king through all the seasons of his reign. Let us sit with this teaching for a moment, because it has much to offer us. When we are in the midst of difficulty, whether it is grief, or fear, or disappointment, or any of the other painful visitors that come to our hearts, there is often a feeling that the pain will never end. We cannot see past the present moment. The darkness seems absolute, stretching in all directions without boundary or limit. This feeling is part of what makes difficult emotions so hard to bear. It is not just that we are suffering now. It is that we believe we will suffer forever. The pain seems permanent, and this belief in permanence turns ordinary suffering into despair. But the belief is false. Pain is not permanent. Nothing is permanent. Whatever we are feeling now, however solid and endless it seems, will change. It will shift, soften, transform. It will pass. This is not wishful thinking. It is simply the nature of reality. Everything that arises also passes away. This is as true of our emotions as it is of the weather, the seasons, the rise and fall of empires. No state lasts forever. No feeling is final. When we remember this, something opens in us. Hope returns. Not hope that we will be magically rescued from our pain, but hope that we can move through it, that there is another side, that life will not always feel this way. And hope is not a small thing. Hope is what allows us to keep going. When we believe that things can get better, we are willing to do the work that helps them get better. When we believe that the darkness is temporary, we can endure it with more patience and less despair. The Buddha taught this truth in many ways. He spoke of impermanence as one of the 3 fundamental characteristics of existence. Everything that arises, he said, also passes away. This is not a curse but a blessing, because it means that even our deepest suffering has an end. One of the most beautiful expressions of this teaching comes from a simple observation. The Buddha once held up a flower and asked his students what they saw. Most saw just a flower, beautiful in the moment. But the Buddha saw something more. He saw the seed from which the flower grew. He saw the rain and sunlight that nourished it. He saw the soil and the hands that planted it. And he saw that the flower would one day wilt and return to the earth, becoming part of the soil for future flowers. Everything is like this flower. Everything arises from conditions, exists for a time, and passes away. Our emotions are no different. They bloom and they fade. They arise and they pass. Understanding this does not make us love the flower less. If anything, it makes us love it more. We appreciate each petal, each moment of bloom, knowing how brief and precious it is. When we are suffering, we can remember, this feeling too is a flower. It has bloomed in the garden of our heart. It is real and present now, but it will not bloom forever. The petals will fall, the feeling will pass, and in its place, something else will grow. But the teaching of impermanence is not only for difficult times. It is equally important when things are going well. When we are happy, when life is flowing smoothly, when we are surrounded by people we love and doing work that fulfills us, there is a temptation to take it all for granted. We assume that the good times will continue indefinitely. We become careless, complacent, forgetful of how precious these moments truly are. And then, when things change, as they inevitably do, we are caught off guard. We feel cheated, as though something that was rightfully ours has been stolen. We did not appreciate what we had when we had it, and now it is gone. The ring teaches a different way. This too will pass. It reminds us, even the beautiful things, even the moments of joy, even the people we love, everything is impermanent. This might sound like a recipe for anxiety, but it is actually a recipe for gratitude. When we know that this moment will not last forever, we pay more attention to it. We savor it. We let it fill us completely. We stop postponing our appreciation for some future time and start appreciating what is here, now, today. There is a practice in many wisdom traditions of reflecting on impermanence as a way of deepening gratitude. We contemplate the fact that our loved ones will not be with us forever, not to make ourselves sad, but to remind ourselves to cherish them while they are here. We reflect on the passing nature of our health, our abilities, our opportunities, not to create fear, but to inspire us to use these gifts fully while we have them. This is the second gift of the ring. In dark times, it offers hope. In bright times, it offers gratitude. Both are rooted in the same truth, that nothing lasts forever, and knowing this helps us live more wisely and more fully. Let us explore one more story, a brief glimpse into how this ancient teaching continues to touch lives today. In a distant land, at a great university, something terrible had happened. A tragedy that shook the entire community, a loss so great that it seemed impossible to bear. Many young lives were cut short. Many hearts were broken. The grief was overwhelming. In the months that followed, the community struggled to find its way forward. There were memorials and gatherings, tears and embraces. People leaned on one another, as people do in times of great sorrow. Slowly, painfully, life began to continue. When the time came for the graduation ceremony, there was a question in the air. How do we celebrate when we are still grieving? How do we look toward the future when the past still weighs so heavily? The graduates gathered in their ceremonial robes. They wore the traditional caps upon their heads, the flat-topped hats that marked this rite of passage. And one young graduate had done something unusual with her cap. On the flat surface, where everyone could see, she had painted 4 words. Simple words. Ancient words. Words that spoke to everything her community had been through and everything that lay ahead. This too will pass. It was not a denial of the grief. It was not a dismissal of the pain. It was something deeper. It was an acknowledgement that even the darkest night eventually yields to dawn. It was a message of hope, offered from one heart to many. It was a reminder that life continues, that healing is possible, that the human spirit is resilient beyond measure. Those who saw the message understood. Some wept. Some smiled through their tears. All were touched by the simple truth of those 4 words, a truth that has comforted human beings for as long as we have been human. You do not need a golden ring to carry this teaching with you. The ring is really a symbol, a reminder of something you can know in your own heart. Imagine, if you will, that you are wearing such a ring right now. It sits on your finger, invisible but present. And inscribed upon it are those 4 words, available to you whenever you need them. In moments of difficulty, you can look at your invisible ring. This too will pass, it says. You do not have to carry this weight forever. The pain is real, but it is not permanent. There is hope. There is a way through. In moments of joy, you can look at your invisible ring. This too will pass, it says. Not as a warning, but as an invitation. Let this happiness sink into your bones. Let yourself feel it fully. Do not wait for some future moment to appreciate what is here now. This moment is precious. Let it be precious to you. And in ordinary moments, the moments that make up most of our lives, the ring has something to offer as well. It reminds us that even the ordinary is impermanent. Even the familiar will one day change. This too will pass, including the simple gift of being alive, of breathing, of watching the light change through the window. All of it is passing, all the time. And this awareness, far from making life feel empty, makes it feel infinitely full. There is a story told of an old teacher who was asked by a student, "What is the most important teaching you can offer me?" The teacher thought for a long moment, then said simply, "Everything changes." The student waited for more, but the teacher remained silent. "Is that all?" The student asked, somewhat disappointed. The teacher smiled. "If you truly understand those 2 words, you will need nothing else. They contain the cure for despair, for they remind us that sorrow passes. They contain the cure for complacency, for they remind us that joy passes too. They contain the secret of gratitude, of hope, of living fully in each moment. Everything changes. Understand this, really understand it, and you will be free." The student went away and contemplated these words for many years. And in time, she understood. Those 2 words did contain everything. They were the key that unlocked the door to peace. The Buddha said, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Work out your own salvation with diligence." This teaching is both a comfort and a call to action. It comforts us by reminding us that our suffering is temporary. It calls us to action by reminding us that our opportunities are also temporary. We cannot wait forever to do what matters. We cannot postpone indefinitely the love we mean to give, the work we mean to do, the life we mean to live. Impermanence is not a reason to give up. It is a reason to engage fully, to show up completely, to bring our whole hearts to the moments we are given. Knowing that everything will change helps us hold things lightly, without grasping or clinging. But it also helps us hold things dearly, knowing how precious they are. This is the balance that the wise ruler found. He learned to work diligently during difficult times, knowing they would pass. He learned to appreciate deeply during good times, knowing they would pass too. He stopped fighting against the nature of reality and started flowing with it. And in doing so, he found a peace that did not depend on circumstances, a peace that could weather any storm. This peace is available to you as well, not as some distant goal, but as a present possibility. It begins with remembering, again and again, the simple truth that everything changes. It deepens each time you meet a difficult emotion with the knowledge that it will pass. It grows each time you savor a moment of happiness with the awareness of its preciousness. Take a breath now. Let your shoulders soften. Feel the weight of your body resting where it rests. You have been exploring a teaching that has comforted countless hearts across the ages. It is simple enough to fit on a ring, yet deep enough to guide a life. Carry it with you as we continue our journey together. This too will pass. And because it will pass, let us be fully present to what is here, now, in this moment, exactly as it is. We have traveled far together on this journey of the heart. We have explored the landscape of our emotions, learning to see them clearly. We have discovered how feelings are built, moment by moment, from the rhythms and conditions of our lives. We have sat with the fires of anger and fear, learning to tend them wisely. We have practiced meeting difficulty with letting go, with kindness, with gentleness. And we have received the ancient teaching of impermanence, the 4 words that can guide us through any season. Now we come to the final part of our exploration. And it is, in many ways, the most beautiful part. We have spent much of our time learning how to work with difficult emotions. This is natural, because it is often difficulty that brings us to the path. We seek wisdom because we are suffering. We look for guidance because something hurts. The negative emotions demand our attention in a way that the positive ones do not. But the path of wisdom is not only about reducing suffering. It is also about cultivating joy. It is not only about putting out fires. It is also about planting gardens. It is not only about surviving the storms. It is also about learning to dance in the sunlight. This is what we will explore now. How to grow the beautiful emotions, how to nurture the seeds of peace, how to become gardeners of our own hearts. There is a choice we make, again and again, usually without realizing it. It is the choice of where to place our attention. And this choice shapes everything. Imagine 2 people looking at the same garden. The first person notices the weeds. They see the patch of brown grass, the flower that is wilting, the fence that needs repair. They shake their head and say, "This garden is a mess. So much work to do. So many problems." The second person notices the roses. They see the butterfly resting on a leaf, the way the light falls through the branches, the green abundance of life growing everywhere. They take a deep breath and say, "What a beautiful garden. What a gift to be here." The garden is the same. The difference is in the seeing. This is how it is with life. We can look at any situation, any person, any day, and find things to criticize. There is always something wrong, something lacking, something that could be better. The fault-finding mind never runs out of material. It can find problems in paradise. But we can also look at that same situation, that same person, that same day, and find things to appreciate. There is always something right, something present, something to be grateful for. The grateful mind never runs out of material either. It can find blessings in the bleakest circumstances. The Buddha spoke of this as wise attention. Where we place our attention matters enormously. It shapes our experience. It shapes our emotions. It shapes, over time, the kind of person we become. Whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, the Buddha taught, that will become the inclination of their mind. If we spend our days looking for faults, our minds will incline toward dissatisfaction. We will become experts at noticing what is wrong, and we will feel more and more the emotions that go with that noticing: frustration, disappointment, irritation, despair. But if we spend our days looking for blessings, our minds will incline toward gratitude. We will become experts at noticing what is right, and we will feel more and more the emotions that go with that noticing: appreciation, contentment, joy, peace. This is not about pretending that problems do not exist. It is not about ignoring the weeds in the garden. It is about choosing, consciously and deliberately, to also see the roses. It is about balance. It is about remembering that both are present, always, and that we have some say in which one we focus on. Gratitude is one of the most powerful practices available to us. It is simple, requiring no special equipment or training. It is available in any moment, in any circumstance, and its effects are profound. When we practice gratitude, we are training the mind to notice what is good. We are strengthening the neural pathways of appreciation. We are building, thought by thought, an inclination toward joy. There is a practice that many wisdom traditions recommend. It is simple enough to do each day and powerful enough to transform a life over time. At the end of each day, before you sleep, bring to mind 3 things you are grateful for. They do not need to be large or dramatic. They can be as simple as a warm cup of tea, a kind word from a stranger, the feeling of the sun on your face. Just 3 things, noticed and appreciated. As you bring each one to mind, let yourself feel the gratitude. Do not just think about it. Feel it in your body. Let the warmth of appreciation spread through your chest. Let a small smile come to your face. Savor the feeling for a few breaths before moving to the next one. This practice takes only a few minutes, but over time, it changes the texture of your days. You begin to notice more things to appreciate, even as they are happening. The grateful mind becomes stronger, more present, more alive. And with it, the emotions of joy and contentment grow naturally, like flowers in well-tended soil. We spoke earlier of seeds and fruit, of how our actions plant seeds that grow into our future experience. This is especially true of our mental actions, the thoughts we think and the attention we give. Every time you notice something beautiful, you plant a seed of appreciation. Every time you think kindly of another person, you plant a seed of love. Every time you pause to feel grateful, you plant a seed of contentment. Every time you choose to see the good alongside the difficult, you plant a seed of wisdom. These seeds may not bear fruit immediately. A garden does not bloom overnight. But with patient cultivation, with steady attention, with the gentle persistence of a true gardener, the seeds grow. They take root. They begin to flower. And one day, You notice that joy arises more easily than it used to. You notice that gratitude has become a natural response, not something you have to work at. You notice that peace has taken up residence in your heart, not as a visitor, but as a permanent guest. This is the fruit of practice. Not a sudden transformation, but a gradual blooming. The garden of the heart, tended with care over time, becomes more and more beautiful. Here is something important to understand. Positive emotions are not a matter of luck. They are not simply the result of good circumstances. They can be cultivated, grown, developed through practice. Many people believe that happiness depends on what happens to them. If good things happen, they will be happy. If bad things happen, they will be sad. They see themselves as passive recipients of emotional experience, subject to the whims of fortune. But this is not how it works. The wisest and happiest people are often not those with the easiest lives. They are the ones who have learned to cultivate their inner garden, regardless of the weather outside. Think of someone you know or have heard of who radiates genuine peace and joy. Perhaps it is a grandparent who remained cheerful through many hardships. Perhaps it is a teacher who brought warmth to every interaction. Perhaps it is someone who faced great difficulty and emerged with their spirit intact, even strengthened. Such people have learned the secret. They have discovered that the source of lasting happiness is not outside, but inside. It is not in circumstances, but in how we meet circumstances. It is not given to us, but grown by us. This is hopeful news. It means we are not helpless. It means we have agency. We have choice. We have power. Not power to control what happens, but power to shape our response. Power to tend our inner garden. Power to cultivate the seeds of peace. There is a place where this cultivation happens most deeply. It is the place of stillness, the place of inner quiet, the place we find through meditation. Meditation is sometimes misunderstood. People think it is about emptying the mind, about becoming blank and thoughtless. Or they think it is a kind of achievement, something only special people can do after years of practice. But meditation is simply the practice of being present. It is the art of settling into this moment, exactly as it is. It is returning, again and again, to the simple experience of being alive, of breathing, of existing in this body, in this place, in this time. And in that simplicity, something remarkable happens. The noise of the mind begins to settle. The constant chatter of thoughts grows quieter. The grip of worry and planning loosens. And beneath all of that, we discover something that was always there, hidden by the busyness. We discover peace. Not peace as an idea, but peace as a felt experience. Peace as a warmth in the chest, a softening of the face, a settling of the body. Peace is something alive and present, something we can rest in, something that holds us. This peace is always available. It is not something we create or achieve. It is more like something we uncover, something we allow, something we return to. It is our true nature, the silent awareness beneath all the noise. And from this peace, the most beautiful emotions arise. Joy comes, not as excitement, but as a quiet delight in being. Love comes, not as grasping, but as an overflowing of the heart toward all things. Compassion comes, not as duty, but as a natural response to the suffering we see around us. These emotions are different from their ordinary versions. They are not dependent on conditions. They do not require things to go a certain way. They arise from the depths, from the peace that underlies everything. And because of this, they are more stable, more enduring, more true. There is a story told of a meditation teacher who was asked about the happiest moment of his life. The students expected him to speak of some great achievement, some moment of recognition, some time when everything had gone perfectly well. But the teacher surprised them. "The happiest moments of my life," he said, "have been in meditation. Not because anything special was happening. Not because I was seeing visions or having extraordinary experiences, but simply because I was completely still, completely present, completely at peace." He paused, and his eyes grew soft with the memory. "In those moments," he continued, "there is no wanting anything to be different. There is no reaching for something more. There is just this, exactly as it is. And this is enough. More than enough. It is everything." The students were puzzled at first. How could sitting still be happier than falling in love, or achieving a great goal, or being surrounded by family and friends? But some of them had tasted what the teacher was describing. They had touched, even briefly, that place of deep stillness where nothing needs to change, where everything is already complete. And they understood. The happiness of stillness is different from the happiness of getting what we want. It does not depend on conditions. It does not fade when circumstances change. It is not excitement, not pleasure, not even joy in the usual sense. It is something deeper, something that the Buddha called the peace that surpasses understanding. This peace is available to all of us. We do not need to be great meditators or spiritual masters. We simply need to be willing to be still, willing to stop running, willing to let go of the endless pursuit of something more and discover that what we have, what we are, is already enough. Here is something that may surprise you. On the path of inner cultivation, some of the deepest experiences are not of bliss or ecstasy, but of being moved to tears. Not tears of sadness, tears of beauty, tears of gratitude, tears that come when the heart is so full that it overflows. A teacher once described weeping during meditation, not because anything was wrong, but because the peace was so profound, the beauty so overwhelming, that tears were the only possible response. It was like being present at a sunrise that filled the entire sky, or hearing music that spoke directly to the soul. The ordinary boundaries of the self softened, and what remained was pure appreciation, pure presence, pure love. These experiences are not common, and they are not the goal of practice. The goal is simply to be present, to cultivate the garden, to tend the seeds of peace. But when the garden has been tended well, when the conditions are right, these flowers of profound emotion sometimes bloom, and they leave a mark. They remind us of what is possible. They show us that the human heart is capable of far more beauty than we usually allow ourselves to feel. They inspire us to continue on the path, to keep tending, to keep cultivating, knowing that such flowers may bloom again. This is why the path is sometimes called a path of joy, not a path of grim effort. Yes, there is work involved. Yes, there is discipline. But the work is planting flowers, and the discipline is returning again and again to what is beautiful and true. It is not a burden but a gift. It is not something we must do but something we get to do. The garden of the heart wants to grow. It wants to bloom. It wants to become what it was always meant to be. Our job is simply to give it the conditions it needs, the sunlight of awareness, the water of compassion, the good soil of practice. When we do this, growth happens naturally, in its own time, in its own way. Let us bring this teaching home to your own life. You are a gardener. Your heart is the garden. And every day, through the thoughts you think and the attention you give, you are planting seeds. Some of these seeds will grow into flowers of peace, gratitude, love, and joy. Some will grow into weeds of resentment, fear, and dissatisfaction. You cannot control which seeds blow into your garden from outside, but you can choose which ones you water. You can choose which ones you nurture. You can choose where to focus your attention and care. This is the practice. Not a dramatic transformation, but a daily tending. Not a single heroic effort, but many small acts of kindness toward yourself and others. Not perfection, but patient persistence. Some days the garden will seem to flourish. You will feel joy arising easily, gratitude flowing naturally, peace settling into your bones. Enjoy these days. Savor them. Let them nourish you. Other days, the garden will seem overgrown with weeds. Difficult emotions will arise. Old patterns will reassert themselves. You will wonder if you are making any progress at all. On these days, remember the teaching. This too will pass. Remember to be gentle with yourself. Remember that even the most beautiful gardens have seasons of dormancy, times when growth happens underground, invisible but real. The important thing is to keep tending, keep showing up, keep planting the seeds of gratitude, keep watering the flowers of kindness, keep pulling the weeds of resentment, not with violence, but with the patient persistence of a true gardener. Over time, the garden will grow. The flowers will multiply. The weeds will find less and less room to take root. And one day, you will look at the landscape of your heart and see something beautiful growing there. Something you planted yourself. Something that no one can take away. Take a deep breath now. Let it out slowly. Feel yourself here, present, alive. We have spent much of our journey looking inward. We have explored the landscape of our own emotions. We have learned to meet difficulty with kindness. We have practiced tending the garden of our own heart, planting seeds of gratitude and peace. This inner work is essential. We cannot give to others what we do not have ourselves. We cannot offer peace if we are at war within. The path begins with our own heart, our own healing, our own cultivation. But it does not end there. As the heart heals, something natural begins to happen. It opens. It softens. It begins to look outward, toward the world, toward the other hearts that share this life with us. And it recognizes something profound. We are not alone. The emotions we feel, the struggles we face, the joys we taste, these are not ours alone. They are the common inheritance of every human being who has ever lived. When we understand our own heart, we begin to understand all hearts. When we learn to be kind to ourselves, we learn the kindness that can embrace the whole world. This is the natural flowering of the path. The inward journey becomes an outward opening. The peace we cultivate within ourselves becomes a gift we offer to everyone we meet. There is a moment that often comes to those who walk the path of inner work. It is a moment of recognition, of sudden seeing. You are sitting quietly, perhaps in meditation, perhaps simply resting. And a thought arises. Everyone feels this. The loneliness you have known, others have known it too. The fear that has gripped you in the night, it has gripped countless others. The grief you have carried, it is the same grief that has moved through human hearts since the beginning of time. This might sound like a sad realization, but in truth, it is deeply comforting. When we suffer, we often feel isolated. We believe that our pain is unique, that no one else could understand, that we are alone in our struggle. This belief adds a layer of loneliness to whatever difficulty we are facing. We suffer, and we suffer alone. But when we realize the shared nature of human emotion, the loneliness dissolves. We see that we are part of something larger. We are threads in a great tapestry of human experience, each of us feeling what humans have always felt, each of us walking a path that millions have walked before. There is a practice in the Buddhist tradition called, when you see someone else struggling, you silently say, "Just like me, this person has known sorrow. Just like me, this person has felt afraid. Just like me, this person wants to be happy and free from suffering." This simple reflection transforms how we see others. The stranger on the street is no longer a stranger. They are a fellow traveler on the human journey, facing the same challenges, seeking the same peace. The difficult person in our life is no longer just difficult. They are someone who, just like us, is doing their best with the tools they have. The Buddha spoke of this when he taught about the common suffering of all beings. He did not say this to make us feel hopeless. He said it to help us feel connected. When we understand that suffering is universal, we stop asking, "Why me?" and start recognizing this is what it means to be human. And with this recognition comes compassion. Compassion is not something we have to manufacture. It is not a duty we must force ourselves to perform. When the heart truly understands suffering, compassion arises naturally, like water flowing downhill. Think about it. When you have felt real loneliness, and then you see someone else who is lonely, something stirs in you. You recognize them. You know what they are going through. You want, instinctively, to reach out, to offer some comfort, to let them know they are not alone. This is compassion. It is born from understanding. It is the natural response of a heart that has touched its own pain and therefore recognizes the pain of others. The more we work with our own difficult emotions, the more our capacity for compassion grows. Every time we meet our own fear with kindness, we are learning to meet the fear of others with kindness. Every time we hold our own grief with gentleness, we are training ourselves to hold the grief of the world. This is one of the beautiful secrets of the inner path. It is not selfish to tend your own heart. It is preparation. You are building the capacity to love more fully, to care more deeply, to be present for others in their time of need. The Buddha used a beautiful image for this. He spoke of a mother's love for her only child, and then he said, "Even so, let one cultivate a boundless love toward all beings. The love we feel for those closest to us is the seed. Compassion is that seed grown large, extending in all directions, embracing all of life. There is something else that happens as the heart opens. Our inner state begins to affect those around us. Think of a still pond. When you drop a single stone into the water, ripples spread outward in every direction. The stone touches only one point, but its influence moves far beyond that point, reaching every part of the pond. Our hearts are like this. The peace we cultivate within ourselves does not stay within ourselves. It ripples outward, touching everyone we encounter. You have probably experienced this. You have been in the presence of someone who was deeply agitated, and you noticed that your own heart began to speed up, your own body began to tense. Their turbulence became your turbulence. But you have also been in the presence of someone who was deeply calm, and you noticed that something in you began to settle. Their peace became your peace. You did not have to do anything. You simply absorbed the quality of their presence, the way a cold room absorbs the warmth of a fire. This is the power we have, often without realizing it. Every moment, we are broadcasting our inner state to those around us. Every interaction is an opportunity to share either our agitation or our peace. Think of the people who have most influenced your life. Often, it is not what they said that you remember most clearly. It is how you felt in their presence. It is the quality of attention they offered, the steadiness of their gaze, the sense that they were truly there with you. This presence was a gift they gave, whether they knew it or not. When we do the inner work, when we tend our own garden, when we cultivate stillness and kindness within ourselves, we become sources of peace for others. We do not have to say anything wise or do anything special. Our presence itself becomes a gift. Remember the story of the elder monk who remained still while the troubled woman sought his help. His calm was not passive. It was active. It was offering something real, something healing, something that allowed her own heart to settle. We can all learn to offer this gift, not through effort or performance, but simply by tending our own peace. The more rooted we become in stillness, the more that stillness radiates outward, touching lives we will never know. There is one more teaching to explore before we close this chapter. It concerns something many of us carry without realizing how heavy it has become. We carry old hurts, old resentments, old grievances against those who have wronged us, and often against ourselves. These burdens accumulate over a lifetime. Someone treated us unkindly, and we stored the memory. Someone disappointed us, and we held on to the wound. We made mistakes, and we never quite forgave ourselves for them. Layer upon layer, year upon year, the weight grows. And this weight affects everything. It makes our hearts heavy. It makes joy harder to feel. It creates a kind of background tension that never quite goes away. We may not think about these old hurts often, but they are there, quietly draining our energy, quietly limiting our capacity for peace. The Buddha spoke of this weight. He compared holding on to resentment to carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. You may have picked up the stone for a good reason. Perhaps someone threw it at you, and you picked it up intending to throw it back. But years have passed, and you are still carrying it. The person who threw it has long since moved on. You are the only one still burdened. Forgiveness is the practice of setting down the stone. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. People think it means saying that what happened was acceptable. They think it means letting someone off the hook, or pretending that the hurt was not real. But forgiveness is not about the other person at all. It is about your own heart. It is about releasing the grip that the past has on you. It is about choosing freedom over bondage. When we forgive, we do not change what happened. We do not erase the memory or deny the pain. We simply decide to stop carrying the weight. We set down the stone, not because the person who threw it deserves our kindness, but because we deserve to walk freely. There is a story of two friends who had both experienced great hardship at the hands of the same person. Years later, one of them had found peace. The other was still bitter, still angry, still consumed by resentment. "How can you have forgiven?" the bitter one asked. "After everything that was done to us?" The peaceful one smiled gently. "I forgave because I wanted to be free. The one who hurt us moved on long ago. He does not lose sleep over what he did. All these years, the only one still suffering from his actions has been you. Your resentment is not punishing him. It is punishing you." The bitter one considered this. For the first time, she saw that her anger, which had felt like strength, was actually a prison. And she began, slowly, to consider another way. This applies to forgiving others, and it applies equally to forgiving ourselves. Many of us are hardest on ourselves. We carry guilt and shame from years ago, long after anyone else has forgotten. We replay our failures, our mistakes, our moments of weakness. We punish ourselves again and again for things that cannot be undone. Self-forgiveness is the same practice. It is setting down the stone. It is saying, "Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I caused harm. But I am human, and humans are imperfect. I will learn what I can from this, and I will release the rest. I will not carry this weight forever." This does not mean we stop being accountable. It does not mean we stop trying to grow and improve. But it means we do these things from a place of self-compassion rather than self-condemnation. We tend our garden not because we are punishing ourselves for past weeds, but because we love the garden and want to see it flourish. There is one more beautiful practice to share. It is called loving kindness, and it has been taught for over 2,000 years as a way of opening the heart. The Buddha taught this practice to monks who were struggling with fear. They had gone to meditate in a forest, but they were troubled by strange sounds and the unfamiliar darkness. Their minds would not settle. So the Buddha gave them this practice, this way of filling the heart with such warmth and goodwill that there was no room left for fear. The practice works. It has been used by countless people over the centuries to soften hearts hardened by grief, to open hearts closed by fear, to heal hearts wounded by resentment. It is simple, and it is powerful. The practice is this. We offer wishes of well-being, first to ourselves, then expanding outward in ever-widening circles until we embrace all of life. Let us try it now. Begin by bringing your attention to your own heart. Feel the place in your chest where emotions live, and silently, gently offer these wishes to yourself. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I live with ease. Let the words sink in. Do not worry if you do not feel anything special. The practice works beneath the surface, planting seeds that will bloom in their own time. Some people find it difficult to offer kindness to themselves. If this is true for you, simply notice that and continue gently. The difficulty is itself a sign of how much you need this practice. Now bring to mind someone you love. A dear friend, a family member, someone whose face makes you smile. Hold them gently in your awareness and offer the same wishes. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. May you live with ease. Feel your heart opening toward this person. Feel the warmth of your care for them. Now expand the circle wider. Bring to mind all the people in your neighborhood, your town, your country. Imagine them going about their lives, each one seeking happiness, each one struggling with their own difficulties, and offer the same wishes to all of them. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings live with ease. Let your heart grow as wide as the world. Let it embrace everything and everyone without exception. The kind and the unkind. The familiar and the strange. All beings, everywhere, held in your boundless wish for their well-being. This is the heart that holds all things. This is the compassion that has no limits. This is the natural fruit of the inner journey, the flowering of a heart that has learned to tend itself with kindness. We began this journey looking inward. We have ended it looking outward. But really, there is no separation. The inner and the outer are one continuous flow. The peace we find within becomes the peace we offer to the world. The compassion we extend to the world nourishes and deepens our inner peace. This is the great circle of the path. This is why the Buddha taught both meditation and compassion, both stillness and service, both wisdom and love. They are not separate practices. They are two wings of the same bird, each one necessary for flight. As you go forward from here, remember this. The work you do on your own heart is not selfish. It is the foundation for everything else. And the love you offer to the world is not a sacrifice. It is the natural expression of a heart that has found its way home. You are part of something vast and beautiful. You are connected to every being who has ever lived and ever will live. The joy you feel enriches the world. The peace you cultivate ripples outward, touching lives you will never know. This is the path. This is the practice. This is the heart that holds all things. Take a breath now. Feel the spaciousness in your chest. Feel the connection that extends in all directions, linking you to all of life. You are not alone. You have never been alone, and the peace you seek is not far away. It is here, in this moment, in this breath, in this heart that is learning to hold all things with kindness. Rest in that knowing. Let it carry you forward. And when you are ready, we will bring this journey gently to a close. And so we come to the end of our journey together. We have traveled far, you and I. We have explored the landscape of the heart, learning to see our emotions with clarity and compassion. We have discovered how feelings are built and how we can become wise architects of our inner world. We have sat with the fires of anger and fear, learning to tend them gently rather than be consumed by them. We have practiced meeting difficulty with letting go, with kindness, with the soft touch of gentleness. We have received the ancient wisdom of the ring. This too will pass. We have learned to cultivate the garden of the heart, planting seeds of gratitude and joy. And we have opened outward, discovering that the peace we find within ourselves becomes a gift we offer to all of life. These teachings are not meant to be understood once and forgotten. They are meant to be lived day by day, moment by moment. Return to them whenever you need them. They will be here, waiting, like old friends ready to welcome you home. The path is long, but you do not walk it alone. Countless others have walked before you, and countless others walk beside you now. We are all learning. We are all growing. We are all finding our way toward peace. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Sleepy Monk.